How do you explain vigilantism and our love for it to a person that never had it within their society? When I saw this post, it made me really think about how would I explain this, and it made me realize something. The very first thing I would do is ask that person about their culture and their history in that culture and figure out what they had going on, because more likely than not, the heroes of their societies were vigilantes. So the first three events that pop into my mind immediately for me to explain this were the American and French revolutions and then civil rights. In every single instance I just named there, the governing body was the enemy. And basically speaking, those individuals were stepping outside the law to get true justice for what they had going on. The problem with that mentality there is that if that governing body had won at any given point in time, everybody involved in that would be considered a criminal. Matter of fact, I think they were considered criminals at that time. It's just that they happened to win, and history is written by the winners. Which is interesting because, again, if the governing body won, they would consider all of those people to be treasonous and all this extra stuff. Now, the interesting part about this entire conversation here is that there's always been vigilantes throughout all of time, and you see it sprinkled throughout every last bit of any story you could talk about, because there's always an individual who's willing to stand up for what's right, even though the law doesn't say that it's right. You know, our laws are not indefinite. They don't have an infinite amount of possibilities to cover an infinite amount of things. Therefore, a lot of times there's always an individual that have to stand up and get something changed or get something altered or added or something to that effect. And you see it based off of just the internet alone. In the last probably 20 years, there's been several, if not dozens of laws created just purely based off of the fact that we now have this new domain to go into where people are doing things in horrendous fashions and getting away with it, or at the time got away with it. Now, there's a lot of checks and balances and so on for you to be able to help create a law or help navigate a situation where the law doesn't cover. Therefore, you're not necessarily breaking the law based off of what I just said. However, at the end of the day, a lot of times the reason why we do have things that protect us is because somebody was willing to stand up for what's right, even though it was not written down. So they ended up changing whatever laws or whatever thing they had going on to help people out just in general. One thing I would say that separates the vigilante criminal from the average criminal is that vigilantes are actually trying to help. The only thing I would state is that a lot of time vigilantes mess up where they don't do the proper research into making sure that whoever they're hunting is the actual criminal and is the actual bad guy. So you got to be very aware of that and very careful of like how you're approaching stuff. But at the end of the day, vigilantes exist everywhere and they do help out where they can. So till next time, peace.